Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. So today we have Andy with us. We met Andy like in Startup Tucson. It was like an event organized by Startup Tucson CIC. And Andy, how about like you introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure. Just give a brief introduction of myself. It's nice to be back here at the U of A Library. I'm an alumni of the U of A, and I am an entrepreneur. I've done a couple different kinds of businesses over the years. Tech startups, current one is financial consulting and asset management, and I've always got a couple of side projects going for fun.
Oh, that's great.
Okay, so as we were looking through your profile, one of the first things that intrigued me was your martial art background, and I think you even have that. I think you holding that sword photo in the contact that you gave us.
So. Oh, that's right. Just try to have a little fun with it, not take myself too seriously. So I'm in my 40s now. I'm in the middle of my life, and I find it's increasingly important just to take care of my physical health. But I've got to nurture my inner child. Keep myself young. So when I turned 40, I took up sword fighting.
Wow.
Right?
Okay, yeah.
It's a great midlife crisis. I encourage anybody to try it. But yes, I started doing historical European martial arts.
Yeah.
German longsword, Italian rapier. And then when I moved back to Tucson a couple of years ago, I also took up a traditional style of Japanese swordsmanship, which is really kind of living history. It's neat to be part of preserving those traditions, and so it's good exercise. Mm-hmm. It's good camaraderie, and like I said, it kind of keeps me feeling young. It's a little fun. Can't take it too serious. And then I love to ride mountain bikes. I like to get out in nature and just enjoy that, and try to stay healthy and keep myself as young as I can for as long as I can.
Oh, that's quite something that you do right now, like to keep yourself fit and healthy. I think that is the main thing, that we should focus upon in life, being healthy and just living a good life. So Andy, what background do you have? What degrees did you did in your college life, and what's your background?
Sure. So as I said, I'm a U of A alumnus. I did actually 2 degrees here. I did a degree in East Asian Studies, which basically means a degree in Chinese, and I did another degree in liberal studies, which basically means I had a bunch of extra units and I got to cash them in as another degree. And when I started here, actually I didn't start at the U of A, I started at the Arizona International College. The Board of Regents set that up in the late 1990s. It was supposed to be the 4th major institution of higher education. It was way out there's an old IBM factory out there, which I think is still used for something today. And so we're way out there, and the idea was it was going to be a liberal arts college focused on international studies. They like to say it was sort of loosely based on the model of Thunderbird School of International Management up in Phoenix, but of course not a business school. And after a couple of years, that ended up, for different reasons, getting brought onto the U of A campus and then kind of merged and subsumed. And then eventually they shut it down but kept its funding. So, that was what turned into that liberal studies degree. But man, I really appreciate that liberal arts education.
Oh, yeah.
People like to kind of, I think, be looked down like, oh, what kind of job are you going to get with your humanities degree, your liberal arts degree? It's timeless knowledge that doesn't expire. It's never going to be obsolete. Any job you do, any role you do, that kind of mindset, that background is, I think, just universally applicable. And it served me very well in life. And the same with my degree in East Asian Studies. Opened up a whole other world of culture, language, everything to me. And that's just invaluable. With that degree, I ended up spending basically nearly a decade living in China on and off. And right at the time from, I did my year abroad at Sichuan University from 2000 to 2001. Then went back there after I graduated in 2003 and stayed until I ended up moving back to the States in 2011. And those were some amazing years in China, right? That was this country undergoing a transformation like the world's never seen. It's just incredible. They used to say the national bird of China was the crane, right? Because they're like building high rises everywhere you go. And it was just like every year was better than the last. People's lives improving. Man, it was just a wonderful time to be there. And I'm actually going to be going back to China for the first time since the pandemic at the end of this month for an alumni event from graduate school, and that will be interesting. I've got some trepidations about it because I know things have changed a lot. And as coming in there as an American, as a foreigner, I get the sense it's not the same, open arms, Beijing Huanyingyi that it was back in the day. But I want to go see what's going on over there now, reconnect with folks. So I'm looking forward to that. But that's, you were asking about my academic background. So in 2008, actually, 2007, I'm sorry, I came back to the States and spent a little bit less than 2 years doing my MBA at Thunderbird School of Global Management up in Phoenix, which is, I don't know if you guys know about Thunderbird. It's it was the world's, at least the U.S.'s, first and oldest school of international business. And it's really quite a remarkable place, a remarkable story. It began life as an airfield where they trained the Flying Tigers during World War II. That was, before the U.S. had entered the war, and we never really did get too deeply involved in the Chinese theater of the war. But we trained pilots. Chinese pilots came over here, learned how to fly, and went back, and that was what Thunderbird Field was. And after the end of the war, I think it was a colonel that had been in charge of the field bought it from I think it was Army Air Corps. I'm not sure. Bought it from the military for $1, and started this school with the idea, the motto that borders frequented by trade seldom need soldiers. This idea that an interconnected world where we engage in, especially in commerce together, we're going to be a lot less likely to have conflict. And I think we've seen that play out pretty well over the last century, especially with Japan, right, in particular. The engagement going from really the bitterest of enemies to the closest of friends and allies. And of course, it's interesting, in recent days, we've sort of seen limitations of that, maybe with Ukraine and Russia. It's fascinating stuff, but I still believe in it. Globalization, I know, gets a bad rap, gets villainized a lot, but I've seen it, I believe, raise the living standards of people in a lot of the world, and draw people and cultures closer together in ways that they wouldn't have. So even though it's maybe fallen out of favor of it, I'm still a big believer in the positive powers and many aspects of connected global economy.
Well, that's amazing, and we do agree with that. I think that a degree doesn't define you. There are things which are more than a degree. You can have a degree in anything, and you can do anything in the world. You can be like next billionaire or the next millionaire. You can do anything. So your experience, you have had a good amount of experience of a lot of industries and startup business marketing strategies, and you have also worked in edtech. So I think the audience would like to know that what you have done in the edtech industry and how you managed to work up on startups, and what's your experience with starting startups and all that.
Sure, and I'll kind of take take a little longer route to tell that piece, if I may. So really, my first entrepreneurial venture, I was 15 years old in high school, and I used to like to play paintball. Right, go out, dress up in camouflage, and shoot each other's paintballs and stuff out in the desert, or there were a couple actual kind of places you could go, and I would get these, have magazines about it. We'd buy stuff and just read articles, and in there they always had these advertisements from the manufacturers and stuff, and I was like, I wonder if I could just buy stuff right from them, so I called up and was like, hey, can I just buy this from you and not have to go through the store over here? And well, we're wholesalers, we only sell to businesses. Okay, well, what does it take to be a business? Well, we would need a copy of your your retail sales license, maybe a picture of your storefront or some letterhead and a business card, just something to show you're a real business. Okay, went back, thought about it, and I was too young to get started a business. So got my mom to go out and register a retail sales license. I think now they call it a transaction privilege license, something like that. So I got that, and I had some business cards printed up and made some letterhead. And before I know it, I could order from these wholesalers. At first, it was just like, hey, I can get paintballs half price, or I can get this cool gun that I can't afford for less. But after a while, I realized, hey, I can actually take this stuff, put it in the trunk of my car, go out to the field, and sell this stuff. And because I had no overhead, I'm just some kid, I don't have a storefront, I don't have a marketing budget, I could sell it for way less than the guy with the store right around the corner from other places that people order this stuff from before the internet. It was like 1995, right? 1994, 1995. I was like, I think I started when I was 15, then I got my driver's license, something like that, at 16. And so I remember this one day I was out at, it was just this, I think it was a reclaimed garbage dump that they'd reforested out by the river, and we go play there. And the owner of the local paintball shop, there was one, came up to me, and he was mad. He was not happy. And he read me the writing. He's like, kid, you're out here selling this stuff at these prices, undercutting me. I got a real store, I got a real job, this is my livelihood. And I felt bad, right? But as later in life, I've stepped back and looked at that and said, no, man, I had a better business model, right? I had a low cost, low overhead business model. That was my competitive advantage. And if it had been 5 years later, that would have been, in online, that would have become an e-commerce business probably, right? That's the model. But I didn't see it that way at the time. It was fun to sort of get to support my own hobby, maybe I made a little bit of money at it, but maybe just enough to support my own hobby. And it really wasn't until later that I really saw, like, no, that was a businessman, and it could have been more. So that was one of my first experiences with entrepreneurship. And life went on. I did just regular jobs, did IT stuff, and fast forward till after my degrees, and I was graduated with that East Asian Studies degree, so like, well, great, now I'm never going to get a job. So I moved back to China, and had kind of actually a failed startup initially there, and it was education related as well. In that one, it didn't come anything. I won't need to get into the details, but I said, well, okay, I'm here. I want to stay here. And the easiest job for a foreigner there is just to teach English, and it was kind of humbling because I didn't want to do that. But I said, okay, well, I can do this till I figure something out. So I did. I went and I taught, and I discovered that actually I really quite liked teaching and being in front of the classroom, and it's a job you can feel good about at night. You have a hard day's work and you get done, and you've hopefully taught somebody something that will help them in their life. I really enjoyed especially helping people prep for like the ELTS exam or the TOEFL or college entrance exams. That was really rewarding, but loved working with little kids too. So much fun. They just got this love of learning. They haven't figured out yet that it's supposed to be, boring or school. They're just having fun. One of my clients ended up being a business where we go out to this factory and teach their workers, and then eventually that ended up I ended up running that program for the school I was at, and so it was more management than entrepreneurial, but something like that. So I had basically taken over for the school managing their business training program, and then one of the clients that I handled there was the Chamber of Commerce, the Zhuhai the Import-Export Chamber of Commerce of Zhuhai, which is the city I was living in. It's, if you know where Macau is, if you walk across the border into mainland China, that's Zhuhai. And so I was talking to them about, I got to be friends with some of the folks there. We were sitting out on a street corner eating barbecue, drinking baijiu. This is like Chinese grain alcohol, right? One night I would say, well, I want to start a translation business. I'd done a translation project actually for them. It was a lot of fun. I said, man, it's really a pain to start a business in China as a foreigner. You can do it, but instead, how about we just set you up, inside the chamber, so you don't have to go do all the registration stuff. It'll be your business, but it's going to be inside the chamber. It's good for us. It's good for you. So, okay, cool. We'll try that. So that was, I'd say, my next, real entrepreneurial venture. Right before that, I had jobs and maybe that one little kind of failed attempt at starting a business, but then this one. So, took on translation projects and started to get my feet wet in this, having kind of a business of my own. And then eventually got to where I was, okay, there's a fairly low ceiling to this business, what it can be. And I also realized that I don't know anything about running a business, how to grow it, how to market, how to run it. None of that. And so I'd long had this kind of ambition to go to Thunderbird School of Global Management. I'd heard about it at Arizona International College. And so the timing really lined up. And I said, okay, I actually found somebody that I was able to sort of pass that business off to. I didn't sell it, I just said, here it is, run with it. And went off to graduate school and did that, had a wonderful time. And, I remember when I first started in 2007, we had this like global economics teacher. He's like, this is the most exciting time to be in business school, to be getting an MBA. There's all this financial innovation going on. Oh, geez. Right? Financial innovation in 2007. And of course, by the time everybody graduated in 2008, right as the bottom has fallen out of the economy, friends with offer letters for primo jobs at Goldman Sachs and wherever, and just resented it was terrible. And so I said, well, okay, if I'm gonna ever get a job, I'm gonna have to kind of create my own. And I really enjoyed entrepreneurship classes I'd taken there. And I actually, with a very successful entrepreneur, businessman out of Austin, Texas, had written a business plan based on a conversation I'd had with him. And he'd been gracious enough to provide some input from his team. And the idea was, hey, there's this demand for Chinese as a foreign language in K-12 schools. And it's really hard to fill these positions because there's not very many Chinese teachers. It's difficult for people to get work permits, come over here, get a teacher, credential, all these things. And meanwhile, I'm, communicating with my then, girlfriend, now wife, through Skype. And I'm like, well, why do people have to be in the same country? Why do we have to be physically together? I said, well, I bet we can solve this problem. We'll go over and get teachers in China, and they can teach kids in public schools here, just by video conference, get them on Skype, right? At the time was the thing. And, like everything else, it sounds great until you really get into the details. It's like, oh man, we're gonna have to figure out how to get US teaching credentials, state by state, for people in China without setting foot in the US. That had never been done. Realizing the time difference. If you're, if you're in a regular school day as a kid here in the US, that's the middle of the night in China. So well, let's try it. We really think there's something there. So we started that business. It had it's called, I've never liked the name, a little cringe, I still think. It was called My Chinese 360 because the office of my business partner in Austin was right off of Highway 360, right? And it couldn't be Chinese 360 because we're trying to get the domain name, right? Always something. So we just, we'll go with it. It wasn't really a very heavy marketing brand based go-to-market approach. So we started up and we succeeded in becoming the first people ever to get teaching credentials for folks without them ever setting foot in the States. They're remotely, the whole thing. And we set up an office there initially with another Thunderbird alumni, who was one of our original partners, co-founders. And man, I'd go in at 6, 7, 8 at night and work till 5, 6, 7 in the morning. 2, 3 frozen winters in Beijing, doing that night shift. I don't recommend the night shift, guys. It's not healthy for you physically or mentally. It really isn't. But we did it. We worked on that for quite a while, and at some point we realized that with all the challenges, internet, time difference, everything else, the idea was sort of proven enough. We had enough traction that we just closed up shop there, moved the whole thing back to the U.S. And we did still sometimes work with remote teachers. We always ended up having teachers, a few teachers here and there outside of the country, but we were able to find enough in the States. And it was remote work. I like to think at that time we were fairly pioneering with remote work, right? Especially with the full video conferencing. This wasn't one-to-one learning. This wasn't that at all. This was 20, 30 kids in a computer lab all of them on webcam at the same time, right, with their teacher, or maybe up on a smart board, and the camera looking back at the whole classroom was not tutoring. These teachers were the teacher of record. They were like the employee, they were our employees, but they were like the faculty of the school. And so we did that. And I think there's a real lesson there for any startup, which is just listening to the market, right? If there's one thing I'd say that is most important, it sounds so simple, but it's so hard, is finding product market fit. Finding something that people want, right? What are they going to give you? What are they going to pay for? And it's not always what you think they want. It's not always this brilliant idea that you have or this amazing thing that you've made, right? It's what they want. So we got feedback from superintendents all over the country, because at this point we were in schools all across the map. Not too huge yet, but we had a good cross section. And superintendents were telling us, we need Arabic, right? This is obviously still a global war going on. And we hired an Arabic teacher or two, and there's just no, students didn't sign up. They were not interested. And what did students want? They kept asking us for American Sign Language. Who would have thought? I didn't know anything about sign language. I don't think I had any deaf friends at that point, you know. It sounded crazy, but kids wanted it. And I'm like, okay, well, we've got enough kids who want to sign up for this, let's try it. And it ended up just, being a real blockbuster success for us. And pretty soon our sign language program is bigger than our Chinese program. And it was all because that's what the kids wanted. That's what the market wanted. It wasn't what we thought it wanted. So if we hadn't listened, we would have missed that opportunity. And that started us then branching out to other subjects. So fast forward a few years, and we actually had, we were a fully accredited school. We're teaching a whole range of subjects, like lab science. We send lab in a box out to high schools, right? Transferable credit. We'd have teachers that were certified in states all over the country. But so that was one of the many lessons from that. It's just like listen to the market. So that was proximity learning. And then when we moved beyond Chinese, it became proximity learning. And that company still exists. It was acquired in 2019 and became part of a larger family of companies. But man, I felt really good about that. That gave me some further inspiration on entrepreneurship, because it showed me that business can do real good in the world, right? We helped some kids. We helped some schools. I remember we go into some schools in some really low-income, impoverished areas. They might not have had a math teacher for like 3 or 4 years in high school. Imagine you've been freshman, junior, freshman, sophomore, junior, you've never had a math teacher, right? They'd have like the football coach trying his best to do the back of the math book problems with the kids. And, we'd be able to bring in like a PhD in mathematics to come in and teach them. That had to make an impact, right? So I saw that. It did good in the world. I also saw it created jobs that people loved, right? We had dozens of teachers all over the country. They really liked it. They were excited to come to work. And by the way, we didn't pay the best, right? We didn't actually pay very well at all, because we were trying to keep the cost low for the school. But they loved the support they got, the work environment. It kind of cut through a lot of the stuff that teachers unfortunately have to put up with in a lot of public schools today. And so they liked it. So I saw that, right? We've helped kids, we've created good jobs that people like. And by the way, we made a nice return eventually for our investors. So it's like, that's powerful stuff. And I learned a few things along the way. Stopping at time and home, just kind of going off.
Sure. We like move forward.
Not a diatribe, but that transitioned into my current main focus, which is the Roman Society. And that started with a good friend of mine, also in Austin. I was living there at the time. And he came out of the world of finance, right? And he wanted to take what he'd learned in finance and help apply it to small businesses, right? I wanted to take what I had learned doing the startup and help apply that, help people, make fewer mistakes and get there faster. And we didn't know exactly what form it was going to take, but we knew that was sort of our mission. We want to work with these small and growing businesses, startups, mom and pop shops, whatever, and help them. And it's been a process of listening along the way. Because again, what we thought they wanted isn't always necessarily what they really wanted. And listening, figuring it out, finding that fit. Today, we work with usually 3-4 dozen clients at any given time. We work with hundreds of businesses over the years, and I think now we've really found the right, service mix for what they need.
Oh, that's amazing. So like, you have like a great like a lot of exposure you got like after doing like a lot of things, like some things you started. I think like in life it's something like, you start something, you realize something, but like you go back, you try that thing again, like then you rebound.
Mm-hmm.
Then like you're like, all right, we have the lessons from that thing, that what went wrong, but still you tried that thing, and like now you're like at a good position, and you're also like the co-founder of the startup right now. I think that was the martial arts one that we know.
Oh yeah, that's right. So and that one's kind of fun. So we started talking about my goofy hobbies.
Oh.
And one of those is the Japanese sword.
Oh yeah.
And so this again is just trying to listen to the market.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things you do in Japanese martial arts, and increasingly in the historical European martial arts, is you play with sharp swords too.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically you cut rolled up tatami mat. So tatami mat is the traditional woven rush flooring in Japan, and the top layer of that's called the omote. And so you roll that up, about 2 meters of it, roll it up, you soak it in water overnight, and you stick it on a peg, and when you cut it, it's supposed to kind of simulate, a person, like a limb or something, right? And it lets you, check like what angle are you cutting through? Is your technique right? Do you make it all the way through? All those things. And before the pandemic, this stuff was imported. There were a couple of businesses that did this. But during the pandemic, containerized shipping prices went sky high. And it wasn't a sustainable business anymore. Containers, $2,000 to land in the US, great. If it's $20,000, you can't be cutting that stuff up, So they went under, and I just kind of kept an eye on the container prices. And they dropped down to $2,500 a container. I'm like, that's basically pre-pandemic prices. We knew there's demand because there's competitions that are coming up that need, hundreds of these things, and they can't find them. And groups all over the country, nobody can find it. Everybody's running through their stash. So we knew there was demand there. So with one of my buddies from the dojo, we kind of, pooled our resources, and he had the connections in the community, and I was able to source the stuff from Asia. And so we crossed our fingers, rolled the dice, and imported our first container. And I thought for sure that was going to be a dud. I'm like, man, I'm going to be sitting on a giant box of this stuff 10 years from now. Man, we sold through that thing so fast. Like, our main problem now is we can't get it produced and landed in the States fast enough to keep up with demand.
That's amazing.
It is amazing. And no, this isn't going to be Tesla. It's not going to be Amazon. This is, a fairly niche market. Now, I hope a growing one. But it was my first real experience that's like pull demand with proximity, right? This was a novel concept. The need was there, but we had to educate the market. We had to explain the concept to them, right? And get them to sort of buy into it. So it was always like, it was hard. We had to go out and work for the customers. With Ronin, similarly, there's a sort of a novel aspect to our approach. I mean, we're a consulting business, but there's some things that make us a little bit different. So there's a certain element of finding that right customer, especially the small businesses, and helping them see you don't have to be afraid of finance. This is why it's important to you. This is how we can help you. So we have to go out there and really pound the pavement, right? But with this, it's like the demand is coming to us. And so the big lesson to me there was really try to find that demand. I mean, it sounds as, let's just go find what people want, right? Way easier said than done. I don't have a magic wand for it except just to keep my eyes open and listen, see if I can spot those things. Because having that pull demand makes all the difference in the world. You can have the best marketing campaign out there. You can have the best salesperson out there. But if nobody wants your stuff, it doesn't matter how good it is, right? It doesn't matter how good that sales consultant the marketing consultant or the sales team is.
So one of the questions regarding just that was, you basically how do you identify what the market wants, or let's say that you, I think it's a twofold question. So the second question would be, let's say you did launch the product, so how do you take consistent feedback, through which way from your customers to improve it and see what they need? So.
Sure. It's important to ask, right? If you don't ask, people won't tell you, and you've got to keep your ear to the ground, be honest with yourself, be scientific where you can, listen to what the data is showing you. I think there's a tension in business between one, having the confidence, right? Maybe the irrational confidence to believe that you can go out there and do this thing. You can bring this to life, bring this to the world, sell it, you're going to be the best. And at the same time, being humble enough. Because if you're too cocky, you can, just run yourself right out of business. So being able to still be confident, but sometimes set that aside a little bit and say, what is really working here? What isn't? Like this thing that I thought was going to be, that I care about so much, maybe it's not as important to folks over here. And are you able to accept that? Like your ego, right? So I think trying to tame that ego a bit and be open to it, quantify, right? If you are not tracking your numbers, then it's going to be hard to spot a trend, right? Yeah. And if you're not asking your customers, talking to them, they're probably not going to come up and tell you necessarily.
So feedback and surveys are important, anywhere, whatever you do.
Yeah, there's a number of ways you can do it. It could be a survey, it could just be talking to people, could be watching watching the trends in your own data. But I would also say that I feel it's important to do things that you know and love and understand.
Yeah.
Right? I would never have been able to spot that demand for autonomy ads if I, weren't a sword nerd already.
Yeah.
It's because it was something I was doing, I was in it, that I was able to see. There's probably a million things out there like that, and other quirky niches that I just won't find because I don't know about it. So I think it's okay to start in kind of proximity to yourself and work out from things that you know and love and understand. At the end of the day, you don't want to find yourself working really hard for years at something that you don't love, right? Yeah. Even if there's maybe a great business there. So I think that's part of it too.
So Andy, from your overall experience, what are some of the lessons that you learned, some top lessons which people should know, or what are the things that you learned the most from all the businesses and the startups you did? Your failures, your coming over them and working, and then what would be some tips that you would suggest to the people who want to start a new startup, or they want to build something new, innovative, and just make the presence in the world out there?
Do small experiments and make small mistakes. So when we were first starting out at Proximity, we got some advice from an investor that told us we had to have our own learning matrices. We had to code this thing from scratch, right? It was important. This is our intellectual property. This was going to be part of the value of our company. So, okay, he's a smart guy. He knows what he's talking about, and he's a successful entrepreneur in edtech. And so, okay, so we went out and we started. We raised money, and we put quite a bit of it into trying to build that project out. And more than a year into it, and more money than I care to admit into this project, we ended up just mothballing that and going with an off-the-rack solution, because we realized that the off-the-rack solution could do 80-90% of what we needed to do and allow us then to focus on being an education company. We had to sort of choose: we're going to be a tech company or a tech-enabled education company, and we decided to focus on that one thing. So that could have been a much less expensive learning experience, but we had money we'd raised, we put resources on it, and it became a big experiment and a bigger cost, right? Whereas, ironically, if we hadn't gotten that funding at that time and had to kind of bootstrap it, it would have been just a much less costly learning experience, probably to get to the same place. So that was a big lesson, which is money scales up whatever you're doing. Yeah. And you see this a lot with tech startups in particular. They get some excited investor, venture capitalist thing, writes them a big check, and they just burn through it, right? Because they have it. So start small, do small experiments, and prove things out before you then go and scale that up, because you don't want to scale up your mistakes too, right? So I think that's a core piece of learning. Small experiments, small mistakes, and once you've got things really dialed in, that's when you throw fuel on the fire. The other is know your numbers. I'm not someone that grew up thinking I was good at math. I never saw it as a strong point. Finance, coming out of business school, was not my strong suit. I mean, yeah, I made it through, but, and now what do? I spend a lot of my time helping other business owners with finance.
Mm-hmm.
And because I just saw how important it was, right? Everything in your business comes out in the numbers, and ultimately business is largely about dollars and cents. And so you've got to have a good handle on that. It's not complicated now, right? Business finance is addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and that's about it, right? I mean, you derive the Black-Scholes formula, calculation, and no, it's really generally easy math. And if you can learn the basic concepts of here's how a financial statement works.
Yeah.
Here's how the unit economics of my business work. And set aside that fear that, especially I think in America, people have of math, that idea that finance is complicated and hard. You got to own that. You got to be rigorous about it and clear about it and know that stuff. And if you do that, I think that you're going to have a lot more success in any business you do, because now you're not flying blind, right? You can see where you've been. It's a lot easier to see where you're going. So you can know, hey, is this marketing campaign working? Was it a good return on investment? Hey, am I really getting the demand I thought? There's a dumb old business joke, right? Which is like the CFO comes into the CEO's office and says, boss, we're losing $10 on every unit we sell. The boss says, don't worry, we'll make it up in volume, right? So understanding, making sure you're not selling $10 bills for $1, right? Get your unit economics, know your numbers, and that will go a long, long way.
Yeah. That's great. So what do you think, how should one create a product which is which can add value? There are people who create a lot of products, they create a lot of solutions, but they miss this one thing that I've noticed in a lot of startups and businesses, that they don't provide value. The thing that they provide is just, they just want to make cash out of whatever they will be doing. But I think that should not be the main focus of a startup. It should be about something, solving a problem, or something specific, not having a narrow domain, not a broad one. So what do you think about creating some product? How should people create a product which can add value in people's life, and people can get that thing?
Sure.
So just to add to this point, because I've even seen many of my friends having their dreams of starting their own business, their own startups. But I think this point should really come across that it's not about you, it's about them, it's about people. So how do you have that and know, how do you, instill that value in you that, it's about them, your employees, and, society, the world. So yeah, things like that.
Sure, and I fundamentally believe that you don't have to sell your soul to be successful in business. I think you'll see a lot of people that really believe they've got to be cutthroat, or they're going to take opportunities at the expense of other people. And I don't think you have to do that. I think that you can do things the good way, the right way, and still be prosperous. But to your point about adding value, yeah, I mean, absolutely. That's I think another way of saying what I'm getting at with the product market fit, making sure you've got something that people actually want, not what you think they want. Certainly solving a real problem. But about adding value, just get your I think keeping that as a priority, right? And thinking about that. What problem are you really solving? And if you focus too much on, I'm in this just to make money, then you're probably losing focus on things that will actually generate that money.
Yeah.
So do the right thing the right way, and the money will presumably follow. One lesson from one of my professors in business school was that it's possible to do a great job of the wrong thing. You can have outstanding execution, the best, smartest people doing the wrong thing, and then you've wasted all that. Let's take a current example. I think of. So we've got, say, SpaceX versus NASA's SLS, right? SLS is incredible. They've put decades of the smartest people in the world engineering into this thing, and it's stupid. It's the wrong thing, right?
Yeah.
They're making this giant $4 billion a launch disposable rocket, right? So they've done it, but they've done an excellent job of it. I mean, they flew around the moon, right? And smart people doing their best, doing a great job towards the wrong goal. Meanwhile, you got SpaceX over here, which is, I mean, they're flying by the seat of their pants, it seems, they're moving fast and breaking things and all this, but they've got probably a better goal, right?
Yeah.
So they're doing a good job of probably doing the right thing. They're trying to move it forward. So I don't know if that's the best example, but that's one that comes to mind.
I think like as you move forward with something, then you figure out things, because like I think as you move, like you have a car, you just keep on going and going and going, then there is a turn. So unless until like you have crossed that turn, you will not know what lies ahead of you. So
There's a saying, I think it's attributed, I think, to like Dwight Eisenhower from World War II, right?
Yeah.
And he said that, I'll get the quote wrong, but something like, plans are worthless, but planning is everything.
Yeah.
Because the minute your plan hits reality, it's obsolete. And this is something we do a lot with our clients at Ronin. In particular, is it's ongoing, continuous planning, right? We do a business cycle plan every year. Come down to the end of the year and we're like, all right, guys, let's think about what's our strategy next year, what's our revenue going to look like. Let's go get our, go talk to your department heads, get their budget, make our budget for the year, all this stuff. Plan for the year ahead, let's get it laid out, let's make a commitment to it. But then every month, we revise that plan. We look at it, we say, okay, this is what we thought was going to happen in January. How did that actually go? What can we take away from that? What worked? Let's do more of that. What didn't work? Let's not do that again. Now, what does this mean for our plan for the year? Where do we need to adjust? So it's good to have, you have to have that planning to make the whole team align, so you have a sense of what you're doing and where you're going. But you also can't get like too tied down to it.
Yeah.
You've got to be willing to adapt. Plans, not very useful on their own. Planning as a verb, absolutely essential.
Yeah, so you mean to say like continuous planning, like monthly planning, or even like weekly, like
Yeah.
and continuous cycles is what you mean by
For business, monthly is a good cadence because that's how accounting works, right?
Yeah.
You get your bank statement at the end of the month, right? You get your sales report at the end of the month. So it's a nice cadence. Some people like months, some people like quarters. If you go out too far, it starts to become more meaningless. Like if you're not looking at how you executed against plan, I even think a quarter's too long, because now it's okay, well, that information is 3 months old. It's stale. I'd rather know as soon as possible after we get, after we get all the bank statements in and the sales numbers closed and all that stuff. So figuring that, when you drive a car, right, or ride a bicycle or whatever, like if you look too close to where you're going, you end up making all these like too many corrections and you're swerving all over the road. If you look out too far, you hit that deer that jumped out in front of you or whatever, you run through that pothole. So you got to pick that right distance that's close enough so that you can take action quickly, but far enough that you're not just getting lost in the details.
So I think like there are a lot of people with like a lot of planning and a lot of good ideas out there. But the thing that they they couldn't do is the execution. So what do you think about that? Doing the execution of the business instead of just thinking about how to do that thing.
I mean, execution it's got to be, you got to have a learner's mindset, because execution can always improve, right? If you're looking at what you're doing, if you're not making mistakes, you're not learning, right? And hopefully you don't make the same mistake over and over, but every time you do something wrong, every time you make a mistake, that's great. Now, you've pruned that out, right? You've learned, okay, that didn't work, let's try this other thing. And you keep making mistakes till you whittle it down to what works. And there's a natural evolution that businesses go through as they grow, where in the beginning you don't know what the hell's going to work. And you're kind of all over the place, and you're trying things. But as you go, hopefully, if you're doing it right, you'll become more and more systematic. Okay, we've spat out so many things that didn't work. We're down to this core of this. These things seem to work. So now let's build our training materials around that. Let's build our policies and our procedures around that. Let's build our roles around that, right? So as you go, it should become you have this goal becoming more and more systematic and codifying those learnings. You don't want to become like ossified where you're so locked into the system that you can't change. But as you go, just like water coming down to the ocean finds its path of least resistance, right? That's kind of what you're doing. You want to cut that stream as you get better and better at execution.
Well, that's great.
Okay, yeah, so since we are short on time, so yeah, one of the last questions that I wanted to ask you was, let's say that you as a young man, in your 20s, in your 20s, 30s, like very ambitious, because you built proximity. I was actually seeing your website and it was written there that you guys revolutionized the industry, and I think you guys definitely did a great job with it. So I think you were also one of the first ones to start that concept of education. Yeah. So that being said, now you are in your 40s. So do you still have that same drive to go for it? After selling proximity to.
Sure. I think my motivations change over the different courses of my life, and the situations of my life change. It's one thing when you're in your 20s and just kind of responsible for yourself. Now I've got kids, right? And so I've got my ability to take certain risks has changed, right? Also as you go through business, if it's just you and maybe you've got your life savings on the line or whatever, or 4 years of your life you're going to put into this on the line, that's one thing. When investors start writing you checks, now all of a sudden there's a whole new level of responsibility that comes along with that, right? Which can be a motivator, but also can change the dynamic a little bit. I think that now, honestly, as I understand it, a lot of the most successful entrepreneurs are like later in life, they're like in their 50s, right? 40s, 50s. And I've definitely seen that. I've worked with some startup entrepreneurs who started later in life, and that maturity, that experience serves them well. But I definitely, in all areas of life, I don't have the kind of energy that I did in my 20s. I'm not probably as fearless as I was with risk in business or anything else. So, but then that's counterbalanced by being a little older and wiser and more experienced. So you use what you've got at the point in life you're at. So you're young, you've got energy, you don't know that what you're doing is damn near impossible, so you go for it. You can take these risks because if you get knocked down, you're still young, you get back up and keep going. So that's part of your competitive advantage. Go use it, right?
Yeah.
And like physiologically, people are generally less risk averse in their early 20s, because like your brain finishes pruning around 25 or something, and you kind of mellow out a bit. So man, use that while you got it, right? Go do the crazy things. In science, they say, I've heard that a lot of these like crazy breakthrough ideas in science are usually from people early in their career. Right?
Yeah.
Early in their career. And since their ideas are still you're not so locked into it.
Yeah.
So use that. But then when you get a little bit older, lean into what your advantages are now. You've got experience, you've got maybe a little bit of wisdom, so use that. And at any point in life, any point in your career, be surrounding yourself with people who are great maybe at the areas where you're not so great. Always surround yourself with the smartest people, right? I always say that, if the people around me aren't smarter than me, then, why am I working with them, right? I don't want to be the smartest one, right? I want to be surrounded by amazing people. But also people who have these skills that are going to sort of compensate maybe for areas where I'm a little weaker.
Yeah.
So that as well. Okay, now I'm a little older, so maybe I need to, hang out with folks that are younger, right? And have that, something like that.
That's amazing, and like it was nice having you, Andy, like onto today's podcast, and I think we can have you again sometime in the future, so we can like discuss on some more topics and more in-depth marketing strategies, campaigns, and how you worked upon them. We can like make a second part of this episode.
Yeah.
I think that would be a great idea. We can have you sometime back, and we can have like a proper more like.
Yeah.
Well, it was a lot of fun. I've never done a podcast before. Just sitting here having a conversation. Appreciate you all listening to me. I know it was probably too much of me talking and not enough of me listening. But no, I appreciate it. It was fun. Thank you.
It's all about you, to hear your perspective and your vision. So I think your experiences and exposure is gonna give people a lot about how to do their own startup and how to work upon in life and just move forward. And